Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Tom.
Hi, I'm Stephanie.
It's our fun unit for the month of September. Welcome back to school, everybody. And we've got some English abbreviations that you commonly use here in Taiwan that aren't necessarily used by foreigners in their own countries. So we're going to tell you about those to make sure you don't make that mistake when you travel overseas.
One of these we do use, although we'll say the full term, cost performance ratio. We won't say CP, usually. We do have some other abbreviations when you're talking about economics or economics. But with CP, you'll usually hear people say CP or CPI, which is not the same. So just know that sometimes your abbreviations aren't the ones we actually use in English. And some of these, Tom and I were talking about one in particular, PK, which is very different. We don't have anything like this in America. So we're going to be talking about some abbreviations that use alphabet letters, I think you could say, but aren't necessarily from English or the English language. Sometimes they're just from Chinese, and you're using letters.
Exactly, right. So we're going to mention some of those, and we may think of some in passing as we get through the lesson for today. So let's dive right into this. Let's read through the entire contents of our lesson right now, and then we'll be back to discuss it.
Language is alive, and it adapts. It not only evolves over time, but also absorbs words from other cultures. Taiwan has done this with the English language by adding a few English-based abbreviations of its own to Chinese. Be careful, though. Native English speakers don't always use these expressions to mean the same thing. CP, CP值. This economics term, which stands for cost performance ratio, is used when people discuss whether something is good value for what you pay. However, it will confuse English speakers who would simply say, good value for money, DM. In Taiwan, a DM, or direct mail, is an advertisement that someone distributes on the street. In North America and the UK, people call this a flyer or leaflet. To them, a DM fits better in a digital context. It's a direct or private message on a social media service and can be either a noun or a verb. PK. People in Taiwan use PK to mean a competition between two things. The term implies that two people are fighting it out to determine a winner. It has its origins in gaming, where it means player killing, the act of killing another player's character. The best substitute for PK is versus, abbreviated as VS. As these examples demonstrate, the more people speak a language, the more it grows. Who knows? Perhaps these abbreviations will go global one day.
Okay, let's talk about the contents of today's lesson. Again, we're talking about abbreviations, and those are short ways to express things using smaller words, abbreviated words, or even initials, just letters like we're talking about today. But you don't want to get tricked, you don't want to get fooled by these English abbreviations. Again, you use these here in Taiwan quite commonly, but again, if you try to use those outside of Taiwan with foreigners, they're going to be confused when you mention these. So let's introduce this topic in the first paragraph here. It says, language is alive and it adapts. That's true. Language is always changing with the times, and so it needs to adapt, which means it needs to make small changes to fit the circumstances. That's different from adopt, like you would adopt a child, for example. But in this particular case, to adapt means you start using that practice yourself and you make some changes yourself.
Right. So here it says language not only evolves or changes over time, but it also absorbs words from other cultures. We have a lot of words from French and Italian, German even. We have lots of words that we've adopted or actually are using now in English because, a lot of the people who live in America and Canada at least came over from Europe originally. So we have a lot of their words that have been absorbed or adapted, and now we use them in English. So Taiwan has done this with the English language by adding a few English-based abbreviations of its own to Chinese. So you might see, English letters or the alphabet letters in these, but we don't necessarily use these abbreviations in English, but you're using them in Chinese. So here's the first one, CP or cost performance ratio. This is a figure that they talk about sometimes in economics. It's actually a term that buyers will use, though, instead of producers. So how much something costs and how well it performs, you kind of look at those two side by side. What you're looking for as a buyer is really low cost and high performance. That's the best bargain you can get.
Again, this is an economics term, so you may hear this term discussed with economics, with economists, I should say, people who are experts in economics. And again, that has to do with, money, how it works through society. That's what economics is all about. And again, it stands for cost performance ratio, and they use it when they discuss good value for what you pay. However, it will confuse English speakers who would simply say good value for money or good value for the money. You can say it that way as well. You could also say, it was a good deal. I paid a low price for a good product. So yeah, I got a really good deal. And you wouldn't hear people using the term CP, at least in ordinary conversation. I'm imagining this term to be used in special circumstances when there's a discussion about economics going on amongst experts.
Here's another one I thought of when I read this particular paragraph was, it's a good bang for your buck. I got a good bang for my buck. Buck just is another word for dollar, so money. Good bang is like, ooh, yay, bang, like great stuff, right? So you got a good bang for your buck. You didn't have to pay much, but wow, did you get a good product? Good bang for your buck or good bang for the buck? Those are both okay. Moving on to the next one is DM, which we now use quite a bit in this world of social media platforms. Someone on social media says to me, hey, I'll DM you, or I sent you a DM. It just means a direct message. Because sometimes if you're posting on social media like Instagram or Twitter, everybody can see what you post unless you do a DM or direct message, which goes to that person's account and only they can see it.
Right, so as it says here in Taiwan, a DM or direct mail is an advertisement that someone distributes on the street. So an advertisement, of course, is information that some company will distribute to people in various means, either through TV, the internet, newspapers, etc. That's an advertisement. I think my teacher in 6th grade pronounced this word as advertisement. You may hear that sometimes.
That's British, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know why Mrs. Sather said that. But in any case, I always learned advertisement. Some Brits would say advert for short, or in America we just say ad. Hey, I saw your ad in the newspaper.
Yeah.
But again, a DM is a kind of advertisement, but it is distributed on the street. This happens a lot of times in the city when there's a new restaurant and they're trying to attract customers. They'll be handing out these flyers on the street. And here in Taiwan, those are referred to as DMs, but we don't use that term in Western countries, at least not in the USA. We'll say a flyer. Oh, I saw your flyer, so I'd like to try to have your chicken leg biendong for lunch today.
If it's more than just one single sheet of paper, sometimes we'll call it a pamphlet or a brochure. But usually if you're on the street, they don't try to give you a ton of stuff. So usually it's just one single sheet. It's a flyer, leaflet. To them, it says here, a DM fits better in a digital context. To them is referring to foreigners, like Tom and me were foreigners. So if you fit in, it just means you are just right for that sort of situation. Maybe you're looking for an appointment at the beauty salon. You want to get your hair cut, and you ask someone who answers the phone, can you fit me in this afternoon? Do you have time to accommodate me? So it does fit in a little better. For us, at least, if we're talking about a DM, as far as social media goes, that's how we're using DM these days.
Right, so again, it's a direct message. It doesn't go through different channels. It goes straight to the intended recipient, so it's a direct message, and that would be seen on a social media service like Facebook posts or email or text messages and things like that. And again, a DM can be either a noun or a verb, so you can use it to describe a thing or an action. And those are some terms there that we've mentioned today. We should also mention there are a lot of abbreviations that are actually used in Western countries, and you use them here as well. Like a KO, for example, means knockout. That's a term in boxing that you use here and in the USA or Western countries. You hear that a lot. And, of course, the term VIP, very important person. That is used quite commonly as well. I did want to mention another term that I used to hear in the past here quite a bit that I don't think we use in the US. It's NG.
No.
Which means no good.
My dad would, but he's the only person I've ever heard use it in America.
Yeah, Taiwan is the first place I heard that used. I had a big NG there, so I'd like to make a correction.
Oh, my dad would refer to bad people as an NG. He's a no good.
Oh, really?
But here, they use it to kind of talk about a mistake you made. Here's another one, DIY. Do it yourself. We use that in America. But one that I've heard here, Tom, that we don't use in America is PO.
PO.
PO in Taiwan means I'm going to post something on social media.
Right.
Can you PO that? And I said to my friend, I said, what are you talking about? What's PO? And then someone just said, it's to put something up on Facebook or Instagram so your friends can see it.
Well, I've heard that read out as a word, po, as in posting something, but I don't think I've heard them separate the letters PO.
No, they say po,
Oh,
but it's just two letters, PO.
That's short for post, actually. But again, that is used quite common. I'm not sure if you all know what a BLT is. In the United States, it's a common kind of sandwich, bacon, lettuce, and tomato.
They have them here. Yum.
Indeed. And of course, if you can read people's minds, you have ESP, extrasensory perception.
Yeah.
And also, if you're a highly intelligent person, you have a high IQ. And if you understand other people's emotions, then you have a high EQ.
Yeah.
Those are common here as they are in the West as well. Okay, so that's enough of abbreviations for now. We're going to turn things over now to our Chinese teacher, but stay tuned. We'll be right back.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天来看一下这个外国人都看不懂的台式的英文缩写哦。这篇文章还蛮实用的，不过这篇文章我们设计成克漏字啦，但是它不困难，主要在选项大家都要认得所配的单字或者是片语是什么意思。大概只有第3题是考一个关于这个文法的部分，我们等一下一起来看一下。那当然我们大家都对语言有一种概念，就是语言其实它是活的，而且它也会适应环境哦，所以经过了一段时间之后，每一种语言都会吸收一些其他来自于其他文化的一些词汇，就是会有一些外来语的存在啦。所以在第一段的第2句当中，其实在第1格，也就是第1题的地方，后面第2个字有一个 from， 这是一个关键。从其他的文化当中，其实会借过来一些不同的新的单字，所以第1题应该选 C， absorbs， 从其他的文化吸收过来，这样会比较通顺。那么台湾呢，就是会在中文里面添加一些自己的英文缩写啦。那所以像我们台湾常讲的一些英文缩写，其实阿多瓦不见得听得懂英文的母语者好像不太是使用这样子的一些表达方式。那在第1段当中的第3句，我们特别注意一个复合形容词，这个复合形容词叫做 English- based。那这个 base 呢，我们先看一下它的用法，通常是基于什么什么，从什么什么演变而来，叫做 be based on something。也就是说，这个复合形容词 English based 后面所修饰的缩写 abbreviations 本来应该是 abbreviations 先行词加上一个限定用法的关系子句 that are based on English， 是基于从英文这样演变过来。所以假设我们把关代跟 be 动词都删掉，然后我们只取剩下来的 based 跟 English 这两个关键的话，就会形成一个所谓复合形容词 English based。 那看到这个 based PP 就有被动的意思，基于英文来衍生过来的一些缩写字。好，像是哪一些呢？像比如说第一个我们常讲的这个餐厅的 CP 值高不高，对不对？而且我们还不太会说 CP， 我们直接说 CP 值高不高。那这个 CP 值到底是什么呢？其实它指的就是花费成本跟产品性能一种比率。好，那么关键在汇取之后啊，这个逗点的补充说明的关系子句，其实它的动词片语就是我们所谓的 CP， 它到底代表的是什么？所以 CP 代表的是 cost 我们常说是成本嘛， performance 是一种表现，一种性能，所以这个 CP 是指的是花多少成本表现出多少性能这样子的一个比率 ratio。好，但是这个阿多话可能不太会听得懂，那他们到底会说什么呢？他们通常说是 good value for money。 不过同样在这 CP 值的第二句啊，出现了我们的第三格第三题之后啊，因为逗点之后我们看到的是 who、which、whom， 很显然的它是在考一个关系子句的概念，所以第三题前面的先行词English speakers， 我们先把它画起来。这个 English speakers 指的是说英文的人。说英文的人怎样呢？我们先把关系子句左右括号起来，从第三题到最后面的框框括号起来。它到底要选什么？我们先以动词为出发，我们把 would say 这个动词圈起来之后，你会发现根据英文的句构，动词前面就会是主词，所以很显然第三格缺的是主词。谁说？人说。哪个人？逗点前面先行词，也就是说英文的这些人来说。所以我当然给他主词的 who， 主词的 who。 那还好，它刚好也只有一个逗点 who， 所以呢就自然而然我们就选了 A， 它就是补充说明这些说英文的这个所谓的英文的使用者呢，他们就直接是 good value for money。 那我们台湾人就会说CP 值很高。好，那么接下来呢，我们就看 DM 咯。 DM 到底是什么东西啊？广告的意思啦。广告什么呢？就是在街上大家发的那些传单广告的意思。可是呢，在英国或者是美国的话呢，通常出现在第二句后面，他们会说是 flyer 或者是 leaflet。那么第四格到底要怎么填呢？其实这句话当中有关键字。第四格之后我们看到，有没有看到那个 social media service？ social media 就是所谓的社群软体啊，所以社群软体这个当然就是一些我们所谓的网络的那些数位的 context， 数位的环境，所以第四格会选 A 比较适合哦。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're talking about English abbreviations, and sometimes these English abbreviations only make sense if you're in Taiwan. So some of these you need to be careful with. If you go abroad, or if you're in America, or even Canada, even the UK, if you use some of these like you do here in Taiwan, foreigners won't understand what you're talking about. So we did talk about some that we share in both languages, things like DIY and let's see, what's some other things? DIY, ESP, IQ. Those we use in Taiwan and abroad, but some of these we do not. So we talked about CP or cost performance ratio. CP, you're definitely not going to hear anybody put a J on the end of CP. So, and if you look up CP, there are lots of different definitions. So, if I were you and I was talking to a business person in America or in English, I would go ahead and say cost performance ratio. That will be easier. We do have a CPI, but it's different. It's for manufacturers and how much it costs for you to produce something. This is actually a phrase we use for buyers. As a buyer, are you paying a low amount and getting a lot of value for that? Or is it you're paying a high amount and getting very low value? Or maybe you're buying something that has really low quality, but boy, the price was too high. You could say you didn't get a very good CP on that. So be careful with that one. DM, Tom, what's that?
DM, that's a good question. It means direct mail. Of course, that refers to flyers that are distributed on the street. But again, this term is only used in Taiwan, and you don't really use it in other countries. Here, take this DM for a new restaurant. They're not going to know what the heck you're talking about. It's a flyer or a leaflet or a pamphlet or something like that. And we also talked about, well, we're going to talk about the term PK. So let's get into that right now. PK. When I saw PK, the first thing I thought about, is that referring to KO in sort of a similar usage? Because KO means to knock somebody out, knock out. So does it mean to defeat somebody? But evidently not. Let's find out what PK is. People in Taiwan use PK to mean a competition between two things. And yes, indeed, before we began our lesson today, we had a brief conversation with Jerry, our chief editor here, and he had to explain how this is used in Taiwan because I've never seen this before. I'm not an active gamer online, but evidently this is used quite common among people who play video games.
Yeah, do you know, I was recording with someone today, an engineer who loves video games. That's what he spends most of his free time doing is playing games. And he has learned English. He plays with a group that includes Germans and French. And he said everyone has bad English. So they come up with their own definitions for things. I'm going to ask him about PK the next time I see him. He's a Minecraft player. Maybe some of you have heard of that game. That's one I do know because my nephews wanted to play Minecraft when I was in the States with them. So what does PK mean, though? It is used to mean there's two people or two groups competing against each other. The term implies that two people are fighting it out to determine a winner, and often when you're playing video games, you are trying to win. So it is a competition. If something implies something, it's a verb we use when we say that we're not telling you directly and quite openly. Sometimes it's a little bit subtle. It's not so obvious what you're trying to say. So it implies or gives you this idea that two people are fighting it out. To fight it out just means you're fighting over something. Maybe you're using your fists to fight, and it's getting physical, and whoever beats the other person down to the ground, I guess they win. So you can fight something out or fight it out with someone, and they're trying to determine a winner. What's determine mean, Tom?
To find out basically who the winner is. So yes, if you don't know what something is, you need to determine what it is. You need to figure out what the answer is. So yeah, this will decide who the winner is, but they need to have a competition. They need to fight it out. And if they're involved in, say, a fight, hand-to-hand combat or something like that, then that would be a fight to the death.
Yeah.
But people don't die in video games. Well, their characters do,
Characters do, yeah.
Their avatars or whatever will die, but they'll come back to life again. But in this particular case, these people are competing with each other, and they use the term PK to refer to two people fighting it out. And that will determine the winner. And if you win, you can go on to fight against other opponents.
Now, it has its origins in gaming. I think we've said that. Gaming here refers to video games, online games, where it actually means player killing. We've actually bolded the first letter of each of these words, PK, to show you where we get the abbreviation from. And it's actually the act of killing another player's character. Now, that's the origins. That's its original meaning, where it came from. But nowadays, it just means you're having a competition with someone. So, Tom, PK, me, we're going to have a game and I'm going to win. I'm going to beat him. The best substitute, it says here, for PK, if you're trying to explain what this means in English, you just kind of say, well, it kind of means versus. V-E-R-S-U-S is versus. And we often will abbreviate this just to VS or V even, especially in law. If you're in court, sometimes it'll just say V somebody else. So versus means you've got two people that are on opposing sides.
Exactly. So if you're a baseball fan, of course, you may tune into a baseball game and see, oh, today's game is the Cubs versus the Dodgers, or the Yankees versus the Red Sox, or whatever. And of course, you see that in sports all the time. And again, it's often abbreviated to VS, but if you're reading it, you would read it out loud, versus. You wouldn't say VS.
No, I was just going to say that.
Yeah. They wouldn't know what the heck you're talking about there. So again, that's a term we use in sports. And here's the final paragraph that wraps things up here. It says, as these examples demonstrate, the more people speak a language, the more it grows. That's true. English is spreading around the world, and of course, it develops its local flavors in different places. And of course, I'm always learning things here in Taiwan when people are using English letters.
Yeah.
And I don't understand. What the heck do you mean, APP? What the heck does that mean? Oh, app. Oh, okay. We say app, but you guys say APP. And oftentimes you use the term OS in broadcasting, which I guess means offstage or some kind of narration or something like that.
Long time ago, yeah.
And SOP, I know what that means. I had never heard that term used until I came to Taiwan. I always heard the whole phrase, standard operating procedure, but here it's often shortened to SOP.
We actually used SOP in my last business too. So it depends on the company. It could be either standard operating procedures or standard operating practices. So, well, this is our fun unit. We hope that some of our listeners are out there actually thinking, yeah, I use those, but I better not use them with my foreign friends. Or at least be able to explain what it means when they look at you with this puzzled expression on their faces. Well, that's all the time we have for now, guys. We're going to listen one more time to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back to say goodbye.
那最后就是我们常讲的谁跟谁要 PK 啦，或者是两队来 PK 啦，通常我们就会说是两个人事物之间的一个竞争关系。不过这样的用语呢，其实暗示是两个人其实要决定谁是赢家，然后要斗争出胜负为止。所以后面的第五格呢，我们看一下。它起源于其实就是游戏啦，游戏的意思就是玩家的杀戮，就是要把另外一个人给他杀死了。那在英文当中到底怎么讲呢？其实在英文当中通常用 versus， 就是 vs 缩写点，所以最佳的一个 substitute 替代的另外一个字是用 vs 是最好的。以上呢是我们今天的内容，还蛮有趣的哦，希望大家觉得这篇的 CP 值很高。我是安娜，我们下次见。
Okay, that brings us to the end of our lesson for today. We hope you learned a thing or two about abbreviations, how they're used here in Taiwan, and how they're used overseas. And yes, indeed, make sure these are used overseas before you use them with foreigners, because otherwise they're going to look at you and wonder what the heck you're talking about. What do you mean PK and CP and DM? Again, they're not commonly used overseas. From all of us here at English Digest, my name is Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.